We begin with Mark Gatiss, actor and writer and lover of crime fiction. He memorably co-created a new modern version of Sherlock Holmes with Stephen Moffat. His new detective drama is Bookish, in which he stars as Gabriel Book, an antiquarian bookseller living on Archangel Lane in 1946 with an interest in solving crimes. This is a London of bomb sites, rationing, black marketeers, orphans and others looking for a new start in the ruins. In episode 1, Jack, fresh out of prison, has come to the bookshop for a job.
You know there's a mistake.
A mistake?
Well, isn't there? Above the door, a sign.
What about it?
Well, it's wrong, isn't it? There's no apostrophe in books.
There is.
No, there isn't.
There is.
There isn't.
There is.
There isn't.
There is if your name is Book and you own the shop, which it is and I do. My name's Book. Books. Confusing, I know. Or is it handy? I can never decide. Anyway, I'm Book and I run a bookshop. This one, obviously. You must be here about the job. Tea?
Mark Gatiss and Connor Finch in the first episode of Bookish, which has had huge ratings in its slot on the You and Alibi channel. In the first episodes, we come to realise that his marriage to Trotty is not all that it might seem, nor are the human remains found in a bomb site. And further episodes written with Matthew Sweet explore the worlds of film studios and luxury hotels. And Mark Gatiss joins me in the studio. Fantastic music, by the way, very modern as well as period.
Yes, it's by the great Sarah Vaughan. We wanted a kind of combination of period and not at all. So it's full of sort of synthesizers and there's a slightly techno sound to some of it, and I don't know why it works, but it absolutely does.
It does. Where did the idea for Bookish come from? He feels so fully formed from the first moment we encounter him.
Well, it sort of did pop into my head in that way. I wrote some secret agent novels a long time ago, which were several times optioned for TV. It never happened, and it happened again. And I was on my way to America for a meeting about it. This is absolutely true. And I realised I didn't want to do it. I thought it was too long ago. I just sort of lost the thing. And I thought, well, I've got a new idea. And I actually went to the meeting and pitched them what essentially is Bookish. They weren't interested. That was about 10 years ago. And it's been kicking around ever since. I've basically always loved detectives. I always wanted to play a detective. And I essentially wrote what I'd like to do. And then in lockdown, I actually wrote a script. And so it was finally using that sort of strange blank time to do something useful.
But there's a great thing about how he operates, and I think a bit like Sherlock, whose mind is a sort of strange machine. The idea of how he files his books is based on someone that you met.
Yes, there was. So it's a synthesis really of everything I love, but particularly books. And I had this idea that the bookshop could be like a sort of analog computer, and that amongst these thousands and thousands of tomes, there's the answer to everything, really. But principally, I was playing Charles I in a play at Hampstead Theatre, and on the press night, I wanted to get a picture of Cromwell for Howard Davis, the director. And I went to this shop in Cecil Court, which is what Archangel Lane is based on.
A very famous bookseller's alley, yeah.
It's a wonderful place still. And there was a print shop then, it's gone now, and run by this very eccentric lady. It was piled high with bits of scrap paper. And I just innocently said, "Do you have a picture of Oliver Cromwell?" And she went, "Shh." 5 minutes. And she disappeared into the shop. And 5 minutes later came back with it, like a prize. And I realised she had a kind of mind palace of the whole shop. She knew where everything was, but she just needed silence. And Matthew told me that she was very famous, and she wasn't normally as polite as that.
She's polite to you. The character of Book, he has a letter from Churchill, which sits in his pocket. We never quite see it. Seems to have great power. And I thought there was something of other famous fictional heroes in this idea. Tell me about Book's world and his place in it. He's got a past as well, hasn't he, clearly?
Yes, well, the letter from Churchill is essentially the psychic paper from Doctor Who. It's a way of avoiding the drudge of bureaucracy. He's not a policeman, and therefore to get access to the scene of the crime, you need to get in there quickly. It's just a dramatic device, but it's a lot of fun, and no one ever sees what's actually written on the letter. So we may see that in the fullness of time. But no, he's a gay man in a lavender marriage to his childhood sweetheart, played by Polly Walker, and they've been together for a long time. And their marriage is a sort of bulwark against society, and the bookshop acts as a kind of sanctuary for all kinds of misfits, really. And I wanted to examine that in both in a historical context and also in a modern context. The world is increasingly dangerous for all sorts of minorities still, and I thought it was interesting to sort of shine a light on how it used to be and how it is again.
Yeah, and there's also this mysterious character of Dee, played by Tim McInerney, who we meet in one of the early episodes. He's got an eye patch.
Yes.
They meet outside
Always a bad
Westminster.
side.
Yeah, so there's a sense of... It feels very Dickensian in the sense of there are multiple characters with interweaving storylines that are going to mesh together.
Well, I hope so. Yes. I mean, Book has a past. He says he did the inspector a favour during the war, and there's certainly something to do with the Secret Service in a sort of Bletchley Park kind of way. All will possibly become clear one of these days.
The first episode involves human remains found in a bomb site and the apparent suicide of a chemist. Here is Book discussing it with Inspector Bliss.
This is a meat and potatoes job. You know, the sergeant and I are perfectly capable...
Who found him?
Charwoman, Ada Dredge. Pretty shook up she is.
Dredge. That rings a little bell.
She's been doing the hark up for donkeys.
Ding dong. Was there a note?
No.
How did he do it?
Prussic acid. Nasty.
And intriguing, don't you think?
Tell me about the themes you're exploring, because you've obviously set it very realistically in that world of 1946.
Well, I think it's just a very under-examined time. It's always intrigued me. We're obviously, as a nation, as a world, we're obsessed with World War II, quite rightly so. But the post-war world is fascinating, and particularly in Britain. It's the most radical government we ever had. A time of extraordinary optimism tempered rapidly by experience, but so many displaced people. I was talking earlier, one of the interviews I was doing earlier today, about Tenko, the great show Tenko.
It's a great show.
Really
set
one
in
of
a
the best.
Japanese prisoner of war camp, all the women there.
For women, and at the last series, the war is over, and Marion Jefferson, played by Anne Bell, discovers that her husband, who she assumed was in a male camp, has actually been back home the whole time. And their marriage does not survive because she's been through everything. And it's a very powerful idea there, that people would come home and find they had 6-year-old children they conceived on the outbreak of war and have never seen again, and stuff like that. I think it's just rich. It's a rich period, and rich for crime as well. I keep saying all this social history stuff and then saying and murders.
Matthew Sweet, who presents Free Thinking on Radio 4, co-wrote the series, and I think some of the later episodes in this series are drawn from the books he wrote about film studios and the world of West End hotels. Is that right?
Yes, Matthew wrote. I've known Matthew 20 years, and he's a brilliant writer. And he wrote this wonderful book called Shepperton Babylon about the British cinema, and one about London hotels,
West End
Front. And I said, can you write one on that and write one on that? Because and it's full of real detail, which is, as Matthew always says, the truth is much more interesting than fiction. And it really is. There's some extraordinary things went on.
Yeah. You've set up some very interesting characters around Gabriel Book. There's the Nora, the orphan from a Turkish family, who seems obsessed with crime. Tell us about her.
She's sort of like me as a kid. She really likes all the gory stuff, and she has a sort of massive index memory of all the crimes. And I wanted to make sure that Book wasn't a Superman. It's not all about him. He has a team of people who do things he can't. Trotty's very practical. Nora is like a sort of Rolodex of crime, and I love that idea of sort of the slightly inappropriate enthusiasm. Oddly enough, because I've just read a brilliant new book about Dr. Crippen called The Story of a Murder, and I've never done this before because it's a rabbit hole, but I bought my first piece of murderabilia. I found a flyer online from the time about it, Crippen flees. It's an extraordinary thing. But I'm going to stop there because it's so tempting. So I am Nora, really, I'm afraid.
The show looks very beautiful. I mean, I gather it was partly shot with authentic lenses. I know some of the street scenes you recreated in places like Antwerp. Did you and the director have a filmic style book?
Well, I was just saying to Stephen, I gave everyone a list of all my favourite 40s movies, and Carolina Giametta, the director, was obviously already very well versed in them. But it was a love affair really with the period.
So such as?
Oh, well, obviously. Well,
The Third Man, Carol Reed.
yes,
yeah.
Brief Encounter, Green for Danger, Went the Day Well, The Lady Vanishes, of course. A brilliant film called They Made Me a Fugitive. Do you know that? It's a Cavalcanti film. It's an extraordinary film. And actually, there were a couple on the list which I thought I'd seen and then recommended, then went back to and realised I hadn't seen at all. But it's just such a rich period, and I think some of that, like Hue and Cry.
Oh yes,
A remarkable
about
film.
children investigating crime in the bomb sites.
But it's so much of it's shot on location, and you see London in the way you rarely do. It's like the surface of the moon. It's so devastated, and I mean, within our budget, we tried to give that sense. It's a world of fractured people and fractured places.
Would it be fair to consider Bookish as comfy crime? Is that right then?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I don't want to be pejorative about it because it's what we all love. You know, it's that Sunday night warm bath feel. But I think you can have bite as well, and I hope this series does, because all that stuff. We have to acknowledge we're in love with the romance of crime. But crime actually isn't very romantic. It's grim and brutal. So without it being a sort of horrible serial killer gore fest, it can still reflect some of the impact of it. I think it's important to do that. And there's a lot of melancholy in this show because it's a post-war epoch.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course you solve the crimes, which is what's important. And I know Series 2 has already
The law must take its course.
Exactly. And Series 2 has already been commissioned. Mark Gatiss, thank you. Bookish is on You and Alibi weekly on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. and is available as a box set on Sky, Virgin Media and Now. And there is a novel of Bookish too by Matthew Sweet.